This one's going to be maybe a fun one. We're about to talk about the best of the Bears' biggest blunders. Huddle up! Huddle up, Bears fans. As always, I'm Rob Schwartz with Bear Goggles On. With me tonight, we got Bob Weiss, Justin Oniemi, and our guest for this awesome Bears' Biggest Blunders snake draft, Ryan Dangle, the former host of the Bear Down Chicago podcast. A guy that as soon as I heard former, I was like, I got to get this guy on. If you have not heard their podcast, go back and listen to it. They have some awesome episodes. But he has a voice that's like just natural for radio. Like you have this like natural radio voice.
So I was like thinking, do I go with like a funny accent or a funny voice? Just like mess with people right there. Like, hi, I'm Ryan. Like, you know what I mean? Just to mess around with them a little bit. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It's a weird thing to hear your own voice, as you're recording, you guys know, and you become super hypercritical of all that stuff. But seriously, guys, I'm super thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I missed being on a Bears podcast, big time.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I mean, it's huge to do these snake drafts. We need a fourth, so it makes sense to try to go find some other people in the Bears community. We're really happy that you were so willing to join us. This should be a fun one. It might be a traumatic one, but it should also be a fun one.
Well, it'll be shared misery, right? And shared misery makes it better, boys. So it's going to be good. We're going to have a good time.
Here we go.
I've always been a part of being a Bears fan, so we're just continuing the legacy. Hey, Rob, how did you get biggest Bears blunders like every time, and then your name was the struggle?
I don't know. That was I think I was hyper focused on nailing that part of it. Like, yeah, I don't know.
You want to explain how it works?
Yeah, so we're gonna be drafting. It's a 4-round draft. So it doesn't have to be in this order, right? We can pick however we want, but prior to the draft, we went and determined our draft slots. So we are in order. It's Bob, me, Ryan, Justin. And we need to come up with an in-game mistake. That could be, a player. It could be a coach, an organizational decision that has set the franchise back. That could be a lot of different things. Something that was embarrassing regarding the media. Again, very open-ended. So I'm curious to see where you guys go with all of this. And then we need either a free agent or a draft bust. And gosh, there's plenty to choose from there. So I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be interesting to see where everyone goes. And I'm glad that I am not the first pick.
Yeah, I'm excited. I do have the first pick. Before I make my pick, though, we're going to put a graphic at the end. We're going to summarize everybody's picks. Okay, so you guys, please, we got to vote for a winner. We're going to have fun doing this no matter what. We love the conversation, but we love winning too. So the viewer comments, vote at the end. Let us know who you think had the best of the worst or made the most arguments, made you laugh, whatever it is. And if you don't want to go through this whole conversation, however long it lasts, go look at the chapters, go find the recap, and then go look at that graphic and vote for the winner. Okay?
So Rob won our generational offensive players, but everyone who voted said you had Peyton.
That's all it took. That's why I took the first pick.
So the draft was over already.
This draft does not have a Walter Payton.
I was just about to say,
doesn't have an obvious one, but I definitely have a clear direction that I'm going in. This is an organizational decision that I believe set the franchise back. There is one that might be a little bit more popular, but the one I think is clear when you talk about where the organization was when the decision was made and where it was shortly after. It is the failure to hire Bruce Arians in 2013. Like it just this guy was the reigning coach of the year, just made, Andrew Luck rookie of the year, all this stuff. Now I don't understand Andrew Luck is generational talent, but he was in the building, wanted the job. We had this super talented quarterback who just needed some structure. We still had a pretty decent defense at the time. Yes, it was aging, but it was the opportunity to make that transition to the offensive team and rebuild that defense with a legitimate, real NFL coach. Now, I understand that he hadn't been a head coach yet other than his interim stint with the Colts the year before, but he was in the building. He wanted the job. And just real quick, his first 3 seasons when he went to Arizona were 10-6, 11-5, 13-3. And then there were a couple down seasons. And then he went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl. Like, he was a legitimate coach. We had him in the building. He wanted the job, and we went somewhere else. So when you talk about setting the franchise back, Like that was just a brutal no move there.
I got something to say, but I'm tossing it to Ryan. I saw your reaction. You might have had that ranked pretty high, huh?
That's up there. Phil Emery. Something about maybe it was he didn't want to do a fake press conference or something to that effect, and you're just like,
Or he
bro,
didn't take it
just
seriously
let's get
enough.
past that. This is the guy. Like everybody knows this is the guy, and you hire Marc Trestman. Wolf.
See, and it had to have been a McCaskey thing because, like, we saw it with Hard Knocks. They didn't want the swearing and stuff in there. Like, and I don't think anyone's going to have that on their draft board for this. So I don't think I'm tipping a pick there. But, like, that has to, again, be the McCaskies. Like, they're at every organizational decision I think we're going to see, a lot of them probably involve the McCaskies in some way.
Bob, you even mentioned it. He filled in as an interim and went 9-3. Like, that's as close to saying, hey, this is a live job interview for the whole league to see. And he excelled there. He excelled in both his other stops. And meanwhile, Trestman was one of the most bizarre non-fits you could be. Terrible mistake. Great pick.
All right, Rob, how are you going to follow that one up?
So I'll be honest, I actually did not have that on my board. I completely forgot about it, which is absolutely awful.
I
thought you were going. I thought you were going in a different direction, especially with the way that you were talking about it. And I also felt like I could go with like the more popular, especially with the younger generation area of where to go with this. But I'm also going with the decision that has set the franchise back. It was well known that the Chicago Bears were going to draft a particular player in the 1979 NFL draft. Instead, they decided to take a running back. Of course, this team with running backs. It was known that they had the intentions to draft Joe Montana in 1979. And had they done it, look, you wouldn't have seen, Jim McMahon here. But here's the thing. I don't know if like not having Walsh, like being in Walsh's system would have made him not be as good here in Chicago. But if Joe Montana was the quarterback of the Chicago Bears, I guarantee you that they win more than just one Super Bowl in 1985. Like they were on the cusp in 86 and they were in it in 87. So like things would have went way differently. And I think even that, like how great and like historic 1985 is, that we could have been like the mini, generational like Patriots before the Patriots became a dynasty. So that's passing on Joe Montana, just absolutely awful.
Well,
yeah, go, Justin.
I was going to say, I wasn't locked in on that. So I had to kind of Google a little bit here on the side. You're acting as if they passed on him and he was picked, third in the draft. He was in the third round. So yes. Lots of teams passed on him.
Yeah, they took Dan Hampton in the first round. I think it was pick 4.
You don't know he's going to turn into Joe Montana. That's all I'm saying.
100% you don't. Because, again, he was in Bill Walsh's system, like, very different. But I just can't think that this guy who is a Hall of Famer would amount to being what the Bears have seen since, what, Sid Luckman?
Yeah, I mean, certainly drafting Joe Montana in 1979 would change the course of history for the Bears. I think there's no doubt about that. What I'm not clear about is exactly how much of a big deal it was that they passed on him at the time, right? It wasn't, he wasn't a generational talent that the Bears missed. I know he had a decent career at Notre Dame, all those kinds of things. So this one wasn't even on my list, Rob. So I mean, I guess you and I just went back and forth, first two picks with picks that weren't even on our list, but. Certainly the 80s would be different with Joe Montana as our quarterback. So I'll give you that.
Just super quick. Would Montana be Montana without Walsh? That's the question. I think all of us are wondering. It's a great question.
And Jerry Rice.
Willie Gault, maybe?
Yeah, I think he'd be fine. By the way, the running back that they took was Willie McClendon, who lasted, I believe, 4 years in the NFL.
Joe Montana was better.
He was. Ryan's up.
All right, boys. I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. And I'm sitting at a bar with a good friend of mine who's a Bears buddy, and we think, okay, we really, this Ryan Pace guy, he takes swings. We at least like that he takes swings. Bears traded up to get a quarterback. In my head, I know it's Deshaun Watson. I'm jumping up and down. Deshaun Watson, he's going to be here. Maybe this Patrick Mahomes guy. But instead, they trade everything to get up one pick to go Mitch Trubisky. I liked Mitch Trubisky, the human being. I thought he was a good kid. I thought he worked hard. There were so many things. If Mitch had been picked in the second or third or fourth round, it's a very different narrative. People in Chicago would love Mitch Trubisky, but because they traded the farm to get Mitch Trubisky, they didn't pick Pat Mahomes. It set us back, boys. It set us back so far, and they gave up so much to move one draft pick for someone that nobody wanted, which is the most Bears thing that we could possibly do.
So this is one of my favorite Bears takes, and absolutely passing on those other two actually good quarterbacks for the one. But I mean, it's one of these things where I think the trade in itself gets too much blame. The biggest problem was the evaluation of the quarterback. Right, if you gave up that and you ended up with Patrick Mahomes, it's like, okay, you had an inkling, you got your guy, and I don't care about the rest of those picks. We got our guy. Just the fact that they were doing extensive research on all three of those guys and came up with Mitch Trubisky being the man because he drove a piece of crap car.
Toyota Corolla.
Bob, it's the Toyota Camry, baby. Come on, it's the Toyota Camry.
Now wait, I want to piggyback on what you said, Bob, and maybe I listen to conspiracy theories. So please, I want to hear your guys' recollections. Isn't part of the issue that they didn't do extensive research on all of the quarterbacks? Like Deshaun Watson didn't get a visit or something like that?
I do believe on Watson, yes. They did do their homework on Mahomes.
Okay. And maybe some of what ended up happening with Watson, they might have had inklings into.
Yeah, maybe those red flags did pop up. It's absolutely possible. But just to think, maybe before those red flags came up, maybe we're sitting there in a different position. And, again, Mitch Trubisky, much maligned, and he was a good dude. The only thing he couldn't do was play quarterback well enough to match up to the generational talent that is Pat Mahomes. You know what I mean? That's tough shoes to fill. And the dude never said a bad word about anything. That's
easy to root for. Just wasn't, unfortunately, good enough.
This was definitely on my list, but do you guys have this as organizational decision or is this part of draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on how you argue it, it could be a bust for Trubisky or organizational decision. So, Ryan, which one are you going with?
I guess I missed one really important part. Which one should it be? Help out the rookie.
I mean, I have it on organizational decision on my list, but
yeah, I have it as organizational decision on my list.
Organizational and busts really could.
Organizational, it is, boys.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fair because now I could leave that one open. All right.
Yeah, there you go. Play the board.
Unless you guys tie them in some way. This is going to be a weird draft. I'm glad I have 2 picks in a row. So can I make my first pick?
Yep.
It's all yours.
All right. Now I'll be honest. This one didn't pain me that much at the time. But when you do a little research and you just look at media embarrassments for the Chicago Bears, I would say the way they flubbed the Dave McGinnis head coach hiring. And I'm not going to act enraged about the outcome. He turned into a Hall of Fame coach or anything like that. That's certainly not the case. They ended up with Dick Duran. So he was kind of whatever, replacement level coach, I guess you could say. But it's more so the fact that you just became, look like you don't know what you're doing. You look like the type of thing that becomes the laughing stock of the league. Now, I'm not going to necessarily pair that with winning and losing, but if you're running things poorly at this level and that level, how could you possibly also be putting a good product on the field? And so it's just, to me, very much a blemish on the organization. And so I had to mention it. And, I think it was embarrassing, just flat out, how it was handled and how it was orchestrated by the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I was, relatively young at this point. I don't remember the exact year, but I was too young to really understand all the what goes on in hiring coaches. But I certainly at that age knew this is a bad look. This is ugly. What is going on? How he was on a plane and then he didn't like. They turned around at the time. It was something weird with the airport. I remember, like he thought he was the Bears head coach, and then it just like he was the hot candidate, and like I was like, wow, that was Mike McCaskey at that time, and it was ugly. It was just an ugly situation.
I don't have anything to add.
All right.
It was definitely on my board, Justin. I had it on my board for sure.
Well, I don't know. Strategically, I should be looking somewhere else, but I kind of want to just talk about the organizational one. But I can go in-game mistakes, but I'm going to leave a couple of good ones on the board for you fellas. Well, all right. I'll go Eberflus nailed the coffin on Thanksgiving. I have to. I wasn't even going to go there. I thought it would be gone, to be honest. But coming down the stretch of a game, you're already in a massive losing streak. You're on national television. You're the only game on Thanksgiving. The season is starting to turn into a train wreck. And how do you do it? You totally do a blunder that in real time, the announcers are like, you have to call timeout. Like unprecedented. Everyone at home, people who barely know the rules are like, should this be happening? And absolutely it shouldn't be. Leading to the Bears, for the first time in their long, long storied history, have to fire a coach midseason. So total in-game embarrassment.
I mean, it was brutal. I mean, they started that drive prior to the 2-minute warning, on their own 10 or whatever, with all 3 timeouts. And they didn't use a single one to manage the clock. And to your point, that was like one of my favorite sound bites of this whole thing is like Jim Nantz, right as the clock winds down, and it's just completely botched by the Bears. Like everybody knew that it was just.
I don't know where you guys all stand in the Caleb Williams thing, but I just like people that just rail on this kid. He had no help, and that right there is like the quintessential. The Bears are not doing their part. The organization, the coaching staff are not doing their part to help this kid out. What do you do in that situation? Anybody calls a timeout. Every Bears fan, people who aren't Bears fans are calling me, texting me. Why aren't you guys taking a timeout? I don't know, man. I don't know. It's awful.
Brutal. But I mean, I guess, it was an ugly, ugly blunder, but it led to finally the organization making a good decision. Let's move on. And then it, kind of turned into what it turned into. But
that's a different show,
just pure ugliness associated with the Bears. Ooh, that's right up there for sure.
I mean, the hope is that Ben Johnson is, the answer, right? And if it wasn't for things that happened like the Thanksgiving blunder, Ben Johnson probably wouldn't be here. So
you guys just have those turkey glasses on. You found a way to be thankful for it.
I mean, it's not an organizational decision one for you, so it's not like I'm like arguing your pick is bad.
True.
Bob, Justin, you guys were talking about it. You set me up. I'm ready if you guys are ready. I got my next pick ready to roll.
I'm
Media blunders. You let the man have a press conference, and then you fired him. What organization in sports? What organization in sports is going to let that happen? We're just planning on the future. Yeah, we're planning on the future. Everybody but you, man. That the fact that they let him have I feel bad for him as a human being. He was a terrible head coach. I was furious when they hired him. I was furious that they kept him. I was so thankful that they let him go. But dude, human being, don't do him dirty like that. It's awful.
I mean, treat the man
awful media blunder.
It's 9:00. Hey, Matt, we're gonna go talk. We don't know what's happening. You're a reasonable person. You know what's going on here, right? We're gonna talk. Don't talk to the media. We'll let you know. Like you're either gonna go talk to the media at noon or not. Like it's just not that hard to just make a decent decision. And I also think it's funny that like this snake draft of blunders could have almost been entirely about the 2024 season. We probably could have gotten 16.
Maybe that's what it needs to be.
When Rob told me about that, I was like, wait, are we just doing this off season? Because man, there's plenty. There is plenty, dude.
So much.
Bob, to your point, like I get that they had no idea yet what was going to happen, right? Like obviously one party was arguing one side of it. The other two are arguing the opposite side. And look, I'm going to throw it out there. Obviously, McCaskey didn't want to fire him, and Warren and Poles did. So this whole situation could have been like saved the way you just said it.
Yeah, it's not that hard. Let's all just be adults. Let's just all be adults with an understanding of what's going on here.
Insane. I still, like, as I'm saying it, I'm still remembering, oh, yeah, that's the team that I cheer for. That's the organization that I love. They did that. National embarrassment. Just awful.
Yeah, brutal. All right, Rob.
I know, you guys, I don't really know where I want to go with this here. It's not going the way that I had, like, pre-planned it in my mind, right? Like, I ran, like, 200 different mock drafts, and I was like, no.
You're watching all 22 on us, huh?
I mean, I had to keep that winning streak going. Okay. I'm going to go back to a Bears-Packers game, and it's going to be an in-game decision, and I'm going to blame it on the players. Look, Jarrett Boykin picks up a incomplete pass that wasn't an incomplete pass. It was actually a fumble. You know, the whistle wasn't blown. You're a Lovie Smith coach team. You know you play through the whistle. And it goes in the second quarter. It goes for a touchdown. Ends up kind of being a deciding factor. Not necessarily the deciding factor. I think the final score was 33-28. But it was a game that caused them to not make the playoffs. Yeah, that's where I think I'm going here.
Yeah, that was absolutely on my list. It was one I wasn't exactly sure where to draft it, but that's one that stands out as a WTF moment. Like, come on, guys. Like, pick up the ball. Just pick it up and hand it to the ref, right? Just do that, and maybe you're in the playoffs. I think they still made the playoffs, but it was weird. I think then they faced the Packers. I forget the exact scenario, but it was essentially a kind of a playoff game, and they just left the ball on the ground.
Rob, I had forgotten about that one till you reminded me. So we were having fun, but not so much anymore.
Like you said, Rob, a Lovie Smith team, you so much more often saw them pick up the ball when it absolutely wasn't a live ball. And you were just like, well, that's what they're taught. That's what they're taught. And then when it mattered the most to be that way, they just weren't. So crazy. Great job.
Yeah,
that's a good
brutal.
Yeah, no, so it actually kept them out of the playoffs.
That's right.
Yeah, so they ended up 8-8, and the Packers ended up going 8-9-1, 8-1 or 8-7-1, whatever it was.
And they got it because of that tie. Yeah,
yeah.
Just ugly. All right, so the way my board is lining up here, like, whatever. I'm not tipping picks, but when I went through this exercise of doing research, I was surprised at how not many obvious busts there were. So I'm going to wait for bust for the end. So I am going in-game and media here. I guess the first media blunder I'm going to go with was it was in 2021. It almost made me say, you know what, guys, I'm a Steelers fan now. I'm out. It's Ted Phillips standing at that microphone saying, have we gotten the quarterback situation completely right? No. Have we won enough games? No. Everything else is there. It's like, is it Ted? Is it really? Are you kidding me? Are these words actually coming out of your mouth? So it's just tone deaf nonsense. I have no idea what they thought they were doing, but they certainly weren't running a football team very well.
I don't really know how to title this, but that's what the banner is going to be.
I think just in general, maybe.
So, Bob, I think the most painful thing of when you are, I'll just say a Chicago sports fan, because it goes across other organizations as well, is when you know they are not putting a good product out there, and they know it too, and they still know the stadium will be packed, the merchandise will be purchased. And when you start to feel that way, it is like, well, what can I do? Do I just start cheering for some other random team? And look where you're at now, doing a Bears podcast.
I can't get away. But, that was brutal.
Crazy.
How are you going to follow that one up, though?
Well, I think I'm going to follow it up with I think the most infamous one. It was one where I know my own kids looked at me in a little bit different light after it happened, and it is the double doink. Cody Parkey had a rough season as it was. I think he had a game where he missed 4 field goals all off the upright.
Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, it was brutal. And like he just, there's rumors that he didn't want to go to Soldier Field to like actually practice in the wind and all this stuff. And then here's a 44, 46 yarder, whatever it was, didn't get it high enough. So yeah, sure, there was a deflection. I understand that, but from 46 yards, it's not supposed to. And then just how could you have perfectly just one doink to the other doink and just heartbreak? Like it's just so brutal. And yeah, absolutely. At that time, my kids, I think, were 6 and 4, and I just screamed, "Make that kick, come on!" And they just looked at me like, "Are you kidding me, Dad?" Thinking, what could be so important? But it's the double doink. It's the double doink.
Bob, it's my daughter's 4th birthday today, and somehow, some way, Cody Parkey's double doink popped up today before I was even looking at research or any of that stuff. And I was like, Daddy was really, really, really sad, kid.
Sitting in misery, just brutal. Yeah, I mean, I don't exactly know what the Bears are going to go on to do anything in the next round of those playoffs, obviously, but it's just, it's just typical Bears, right? That's just all it was.
Thank goodness for people quick on the internet, but I remember being so mad, like you guys are describing, more so than I was even proud to admit. But like moments later on social media, they show Parkey, quote unquote, leaving the parking lot, and he hits one of those yellow parking posts. I'm like, the internet is undefeated. I mean, we're talking minutes later, and it got me out of the funk I was in.
Speaking of the internet, I'm just mad that I didn't go viral because my sister-in-law recorded me during that reaction, and I put it out on social media, and I was one of those guys that, like, I mean, it was legit. I probably was this close to breaking my TV. Yeah.
Yikes. How do you follow that up, Rob?
Yeah, so to Bob's point, I think there's definitely enough busts. I'm going to leave that one for coming back around. I'm going to go with my media embarrassment. And I have a few on here that I'm like kind of torn on. Things that I'm like, yeah, I kind of that's really bad. And then there's another one that's just, yeah, that's really bad. But I'm going to go with one that just puts the McCaskies into a category that I think most fans can agree with, and that's them being cheap. And this is the back and forth between Olin Kreutz and Mike McCaskey and the $15 an hour, to be a consultant. The McCaskey basically coming back and saying, you can't believe anything that, Olin Kreutz says. That's where I'm going here.
Brutal.
Yeah,
Brutal.
that's a bad look.
What else do you say? Brutal.
Yeah, just a bad look. I mean, and with Olin Kreutz, I guess you don't always exactly know what's real or not. But I mean, I think with some of these other media embarrassments, especially when we get to honorable mentions, like part of it is the Bears just don't stand up for themselves. They don't do anything, come out and explain it. They just let this stuff live in the media, but go its own way. And it's just like, you didn't bring in a Hall of Fame center to help out your offensive line for $15 an hour. And then nobody said, nope, that's not what happened. I swear. It's just like, okay, well, that's the story.
I got nothing to add. You guys are just cracking me up. So I hope the Halas Huddlers are having as much fun with this embarrassing blunder after blunder. It's helping me. It's like cathartic. I don't know. Thank you guys. All right,
Ryan.
In every draft, there's got to be a curveball. I was thinking about one that I think everyone was going to pick because we were thinking we could do everything for this season. So in-game blunders. And everybody, I think, knows if I say in-game blunders this season, everyone knows where I'm going. But that thing that I will not say because it's not my pick led to Eberflus getting fired. So I'm actually happy about that. This one, I'm going way back in there. It's 2011. Bears are playing the Denver Broncos. All they got to do is run out the clock. And guess what, baby? We win, and we got a really good chance with one of Lovie Smith's last years to bring them into the playoffs. They're looking pretty decent in the process. And Marion Barber, who had a fantastic career for the Dallas Cowboys, came on over, and what does he do, boys? He stepped out of bounds. It just was one of those moments that you just thought it's going to snowball into other things. It was such a bad thing. It looked bad for Lovey. It looked bad for everyone. I think that's one of the moments when things started to fall apart for Lovey and his crew. And that was a team that I think could have maybe done something in the playoffs, but Barber screwed it up. So
great pick, Ryan. I almost picked that over the Thanksgiving debacle because I actually dove really deep into this, but also remember that was part of the whole Tim Tebow craziness. And it just fed into that, which I didn't believe in any of that hype. And that game ended up going to overtime. Bears got the ball, and Marion Barber fumbled the ball, leading to Denver getting the game-winning field goal. So he flubbed twice down the stretch there. And as you said, that I think they were 7-5 going into that game. That cost them the season.
Justin forgot about the fumble. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, and there's still, these blunders, like sometimes it's like, all right, that sucked, that happened, but then there's like the rest of the game that still gets played after it. Like this one is like the game's over if you just don't go out of bounds. You win the game, just don't go out of bounds. Like you can just
take a knee, whatever, dude. Do something.
Fine, do anything. It happens. Like it's just really, it was absolutely on my list. So great pick.
Thanks, boys.
All right, so I'm gonna get a little creative with this one, kind of turn it into a mini This Just In. So come with me, boys. Come with me on this adventure. I'm not telling you what's going on here. You'll figure it out as we go. I'm just gonna start naming some NFL players. Larry Fitzgerald, Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson, Julio Jones, AJ Green, Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson, Devontae Smith, Sammy Watkins, Mike Williams, Ted Ginn Jr.
I think you forgot the guy the Bears drafted in the top 10.
Well, hold on. I left 5 out, so I did do a little cherry picking here. This list is receivers chosen in the top 10 since the year 2000. I left out Charlie Rogers, okay, Kadarius Toney, Justin Blackmon, Tavon Austin, and Kevin White. Does Kevin White's name belong on that list? And some of it was due to injury, and you couldn't have possibly known this thing was going to happen this way. But how did I count 7 guys in that list who are going to be either are or are going to be in the Hall of Fame? And you got Kevin White.
Kevin White didn't even belong on that list with those other 5 games that you left off. I mean, those guys
I almost did the
3-4-year careers in the NFL. Like they did something. Like it was brutal. And you don't know how much injuries really was, but I mean it's not just that with some of these busts. It's the will and the desire to get back after it. He I guess didn't really want to even learn the route tree or thought he didn't have to be a technician. And then how much hard was he working to get back from the injury? Like, yeah, that's a bust. That is the definition of a bust. He was the number 1 bust on my board for sure.
I remember though, and I didn't do my draft analyses back then, but he was very well touted. Like some people had him over Amari Cooper in that draft ranking going into that draft. And I didn't hate the pick because I knew that they needed a receiver, and I was going off of the Mel Kiper type boards right at that time because I had no clue. But now he's kind of set the tone for me when I do my analyses. And I see a one-hit wonder who just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I tend to really focus on their play more because I don't trust it. I just can't. And I always just kind of go back to the Kevin White thing. So in a way, he's kind of helped me become a better, wide receiver analyst.
All right. Since I got back-to-back, if you guys are ready, I can close out my 4. So I did leave organizational decision open. I don't know if this is one of the ones you guys kept kind of saying is the obvious one. It's a little before my time, although I actually do remember some of this. So this goes back to 1988. And this is a little bit after the quote unquote glory days. We know the 85 Bears. They should have probably done a little more. A huge part of that obviously was the defense. But I'm talking about a man by the name of Wilbur Marshall. And I had to do some research. So he was a Pro Bowler in 1986 and 1987 with the Bears. All Pro in 86, 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year voting. He goes on to be the first NFL free agent to change teams in 11 years. It just wasn't a thing back then. And you let him go to another team in his prime of his career. He was a difference maker for you. He helped be part of the Super Bowl champion team that you did have. And then he goes to Washington. Over the next 5 seasons, these are his averages: 124 tackles a year, 5 sacks a year, 3 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. He was second team All-Pro in 91, 6th Defensive Player of the Year, Pro Bowler, All-Pro in 92, 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year, and helped them win the 91 Super Bowl. And you just let him walk right out of your team. Can't happen.
That's a phenomenal pick, Justin. I got to be honest. It wasn't on my board. I'm not even sure it's something that I'm really even familiar with. But I mean, like, wow.
I got some help from my pops on that one. I was
That's
like, hey,
crazy.
This goes generational. Teach that to your grandchildren.
Well, Justin, too, thinking about linebackers and the Chicago Bears. Those two things like go together so well. And so you take one of the greats and you let him walk. Man, that's a good one. Good pick.
Yeah, it was on my board. And the like you said, it didn't happen back then because what ended up happening is they had the opportunity to match and keep him here, and they just were like, no, yeah, we're good.
I'm not going to act like I know what the cap was back then, but you guys know what the deal was, Rob? Did you look at it? It sounds like you did your research.
Was it
5 years, $6 million.
$6 million. Yeah.
It's a different era, but yeah.
It's a different era.
Yeah.
Sure. He would have been the highest paid, I believe,
right.
player at the time or something.
Well, he backed it up with his play, apparently.
Exactly. He went on to show you why he deserved it.
Wow. All right.
Great.
Boys, I need some help here. I need to know. There's one in my head that I go, that's probably the right pick. It's probably the smart pick. But my heart wants to go another route, and I just don't know what should I do here.
That's what makes this fun. Go with your gut.
Okay, we got this free agent. We're so excited, man! Everybody, all they're throwing money at this kid like you can't believe. They think this is the guy that's going to lead us to a championship. I'm talking about Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon got. Bears outbid themselves. Nobody else is looking at Mike Glennon, and we paid him stupid starter money. I don't know the exact dollar amount. It doesn't matter. It just, the years on it, all of that stuff, all for them to then be like, wait a minute, we got Mike Glennon, so then we're going to draft Trubisky. They're not telling him. Like, it was just, all of it was just, so then, Trubisky has no one to really mentor him because Mike Glennon ain't it, right? He's not the guy to do it. Mike Glennon couldn't pass. Like, do you guys remember he then went to, was it the Giants? And it was like their 3rd string court. And then they played him again. And you're like, we signed this guy to how much money? What were we thinking? He shouldn't even be in the NFL. But the Bears were trying to talk him up. I remember like they were showing, selling Mike Glennon jerseys, and people are like, are you insane? What are we doing here? Yeah, Mike Glennon. Woof.
Yeah, it was on my list for sure. Just a bad all the way around. Like, there's like, even as a bridge quarterback, because obviously we know that they eventually made another horrible decision at quarterback, but their plan was to always, I guess, get a young quarterback and pair him up, but he couldn't even handle those first 4 or 5 games. Like, it was set up to fail. And that's another theme with this team. Like, they didn't set up Mike Glennon for success, which means they didn't set up Trubisky for success after it. And it's just ugly. And again, for him to be a bust, it's because he just wasn't good enough. He just wasn't good enough to be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
I don't even think I can comment on this without tipping another pick. So I'm a little afraid, but just a disaster. So many of these could fit in multiple categories.
Yeah.
You just pull at the thread a little bit further. All right, Rob.
So I need a clarifying question. So the rules here were that it was a free agent or that it was a draft bust. Right. Now, does that also include trading for a player?
Ooh.
I mean, I think any bust is a bust. I have a couple trades on my.
All right, fair enough. Let's hear them out. Yeah. There's still the honorable mentions that I can't wait to get to.
Okay, so there was a quarterback here that Bob drafted in our other draft that still owns the Chicago Bears franchise record for most passing yards, for most touchdowns. Unfortunately, he had a bad injury, and the Bears thought that, he wasn't going to be able to play anymore. So they went out and they made a trade for a different quarterback out of Seattle. And they sent a first-round pick for Rick Meyer. Rick Meyer.
You got him. That was my pick. That was my pick next.
And here's the worst part. Rick Meyer, look, he went 0-3. Kramer was able to play. He basically lost the job back to the guy who he was supposed to replace. And they gave up first-round pick. A first-round pick for a guy who played 5 seasons. His overall record, 24-44.
Rob,
So he had only played 4 seasons by the time the Bears traded for him. All 4 seasons were under 500. I guess he had one that was average. But even after that first-round pick, it's not like he then played 5 years for the Bears.
No.
He played 3 games.
3
for
games.
the Bears.
3 games.
Gave up first-round pick for him.
And he lost all of them.
Just
Rob,
insane.
Rob, I'm gonna twist this though.
Wait,
Have
he
you
didn't
ever-
even throw a touchdown for the Bears. He threw 6 interceptions, though.
Rob, I'm gonna create a conspiracy though, right here on the Halas Huddle, connecting it back to one of your other picks. You know where he went to college, right?
I do not, actually.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
They were worried that they were missing out on the next Joe Montana. And so they were like, you know what? This can't happen twice.
Could be.
Rick Meyer, come on in.
I mean, again, if he showed something in Seattle, I get it. But
Oh, rough, man.
That's the most
his
Bears
average completion
thing.
percentage was 52. 52 for his career.
That's such a good pick. And I'll be honest, it wasn't even on my list.
Well, I wasn't sure. I had another
Wait
name.
for honorable mentions.
I
had another
really
name.
thought that was going to fall to me right here, and I was just going to walk away with this draft. But like, it's a great pick, just a great pick.
Now
So-
I'm curious where you're going to go.
So I'm just going to go. I think it's kind of a default bust, but it's definitely a bust. It's the 1999 draft where the Bears came away with Cade McNown. All right, let's look now. I understand that all these guys went before Cade McNown, but I mean, I feel like the reports at those times were like Cade McNown was always the Bears guy. If the Bears were drafting 4th, they were going with Cade McNown. This is the Tim Couch draft. We didn't do anything, but it's Donovan McNabb, Edgerrin James, Ricky Williams, Torrey Holt, Champ Bailey, David Boston, Chris Claiborne, Chris McAllister, Dante Culpepper, and then the Bears end up with Cade McNown. How many games do you guys think Cade McNown played for the Bears?
4.
Too many.
12?
Again, there's a first-round pick. Like, you're supposed to whatever. He played – his record was 3-12 across 2 seasons. Like, it's just so bad.
Where
So
quarterbacks go to die.
So many of the names you just
I don't
said,
even think he lived. Like, he just –
so many of the names you said were just good players. Like,
Yeah.
Really good.
just bring any of those guys in.
Right. And again, we didn't pass on all those guys, but I'm
Right.
just saying, like, it's that's
Comparison.
the caliber of that draft. And that's what the Bears ended up with. So just the bust of all busts at a position where, you just can't miss like that in the first round on a quarterback. And it just was really, really bad. And again, sometimes it's just like, yeah, it's a bad environment. The Bears aren't an environment for quarterback, but it also falls on the person themselves. And he just wasn't working. He wasn't meshing with his teammates. He thought he was the guy, and it just was a complete disaster.
Wow.
Good pick.
It's incredible how many of these are like bringing out passionate responses from us. And guys, I have so many that I want to honorable mention. I
Yeah.
feel like we should just rattle through. And then if we pick on one that we all kind of resonate with, maybe talk about it.
Let's do the recap first. Let's do the
Yeah.
recap, and
Sorry.
then
Thank you.
and then we will move on to the honorable mention. So, all right. So me in the first slot, I had not hiring Bruce Arians as a head coach. I had Ted Phillips 2021. We have everything else. Press conference, the double doink, and Cade McNown bust. Rob
That's a good
had
list.
passing on Joe Montana in 1979. 2013 Packers fumble, knocking the Bears out of the playoffs. Not hiring Olin Kreutz for $15 an hour. And trading a first-round pick for Rick Meyer. This is just one after another. Wow. All right. Ryan had the whole choosing Mitch Trubisky over trading up for Mitch Trubisky over Mahomes and Watson, throwing Matt Eberflus out for a press conference and then firing him an hour later. Marion Barber running out of bounds, and Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon.
Wow,
Justin
it's so
had,
bad. It's just a list of really, really bad.
And then Justin had the Dave McGinnis flub. He had the Eberflus Thanksgiving blunder, Kevin White, and then letting Wilbur Marshall walk in free agency. So just banger after banger of butts.
Brutal.
I am so excited to get to honorable mentions. I got a good one. I don't think you guys are going to take it. I'm so excited.
The competitor in me wants to win, but any of those lists could win, and I would totally understand.
So I'll just roll a couple of mine real quick. One is, I think, Ryan, I think you might have gone, this is in-game decision, just the whole end of the Commanders game. Just like, I mean, it wasn't just how bad it was, like, not, letting them get that easy first down and then the Tyreek Stevenson, but it also, like, that was the end of the season, right? They went on whatever game losing streak after that, end of the season. And then the other one I had on here was Marc Trestman calling like a timeout to kick a 48-yard
second and second down.
He iced his own kicker. Like it was just bad.
I didn't even have that, but that's an amazing one.
It's a 49-yard field goal. What are you doing? Get closer.
Guys, if the Flail Mary hadn't happened in Washington, there was also the Doug Kramer play in that same game. That by itself should have already been on this list.
Not to mention, what game was it where they had that little receiver try to block?
Oh, that was the Colts game where they had DeAndre Carter blocking.
Yeah, DeAndre Carter.
Again, we could have done an entire 2024.
All right. This one's out of the box. I don't know if you guys would have let me use it, so I was only going to do it if I was desperate. But Javon Wims against the Saints in the regular season and in the playoffs against the Saints had two just bonehead moments. One, he just starts punching CJ Gardner for no reason, who wasn't even guarding him on that play, and then dropping an easy touchdown in a game that was still, it was a playoff game that you still were in on a trick play, drops it. It's a 2-for-1 in my book because it was against the Saints both times. So,
punching the helmet is just stupid, by the way. Like any player who does that, just stupid. But I will say that he, there was definitely some reasoning behind it. I believe that, he was spitting in people's faces. So, look, I have no problem with you getting pissed off about it, but trying to break your hand is just dumb.
It was just a bad one, right? Just like a little, like, it wasn't even like a cool looking slap. It was just like,
no,
I don't know.
No,
it was bad.
All right, I have a few. I'll just quickly run through them. So in-game mistakes, Eddie Jackson running out of the end zone after intercepting Rodgers late in Week 15, ended up getting hurt running out of the end zone, and then didn't play again that season. And I feel like had they had him in the playoffs, they probably would have beat the Eagles. Instead, they lost. We know how that turned out.
His career too.
Yeah. I did say the failed Mary play was on here. The Jay Cutler trying to tackle and then hurting his hand because he was trying to save the touchdown off of an interception ruined his entire season. I believe they were 7-3 or 7-2 going into that game, 7-3 coming out of that game. So that I think was a Super Bowl chance during that year. The Randall Cobb uncovered throw, I think it was actually the same game as the Jarrett
Boykin game was that fumble, yeah.
Yes. It was a 4th and 8, right? And if they won, they would have made the playoffs. Going off of the Eberflus thing, I had in the media one also sticking up for his decisions after the failed Mary play because he was just all about it. Like even the play before and like how he handled that situation.
Off of Justin's too, the Thanksgiving one of my favorite Eberflus sound bites afterwards is he said, "We like how we did that there." Like, are you kidding me?
No, you
like
don't.
what we did there?
Don't.
Juxtaposed to Nance saying they botched it in live time. All right, in-game mistake. Anyone remember John Fox winning a challenge only to lose the ball?
Yes.
It was the only challenge he won that season.
That was one of those pile-on fumbles, right? Where like
he was terrible at challenges.
Yep.
The only one he wins. You give up the ball because you won the challenge.
Yeah, it was it Khalil Herbert? Like he thought he didn't step out of bounds or something. I can't remember.
He didn't step out of bounds, but he ended up fumbling over the pylon, which ended up being a turnover. Yeah.
Boys. Oh, sorry, Rob. Please finish.
So I also had not extending Robbie Gould was a poor decision. McCaskey saying he's just a fan, but then also in the same press conference saying he's the one who's going to be making decisions about Ryan Poles. And then Trubisky saying that they need to turn the TVs off.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. This is going way back. So it's a media blunder, disorganizational mess up, whatever. It's all of the above. 2007. I don't know if you remember this. Brian Greasy played for the Chicago Bears. We were down against the Philadelphia Eagles. He leads a 97-yard scoring drive. Bears win the game. As soon as the game is over, he goes, "Oh yeah, I couldn't hear the play calls in my headset, so I just started calling them off, like just off the top of my head." And the Bears organization is like, "No, that's the best any quarterback has ever looked for us. You can't say that." And so what he meant was he could hear the plays, and you watch him in the next press conference, like, "Oh yeah, I could hear the plays."
Oh man, I don't remember the press conference stuff.
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. Bears.
Yeah.
I got
Bears.
two quick draft busts. One, we just got to put it out there, Velus Jones. And then I looked back at just how bad it was, and it was bad. But what about Jerron Gilbert?
Yeah,
His claim to
jumping out of
fame,
The pool guy.
he could jump out of a pool, but he
Yeah.
played 4 games for you and got 1 tackle. He then went on to be 4 times as productive at his next stop, where he played 1 game and got 1 tackle.
Yeah.
That was sarcasm and math, but it's
I
fine, man.
got a couple more. One is kind of a bit of a downer, but it's just an ugly media situation. The whole Alan Williams, like what was going on there, just like again the Bears not coming out and saying anything and just letting everything run rampant and have no idea what's going on. And then it kind of pairs with not hiring Arians, but it could be just firing Lovey in the first place. Could be an organizational mistake. And then the last one I think is pretty obvious, like trading Greg Olsen, like that was a mistake, right? We can all agree that was a bad decision.
I remember posting on Facebook because Twitter wasn't really much of a thing then. And I was like, can we trade Mike Martz instead? And every year now on the anniversary of it, I posted on Twitter because it just, that was an awful trade. The only other one I was thinking about too was Shea McClellan. I remember that Phil Emery came out. We got another monster of the midway, and no, you don't. He couldn't sack the quarterback. Put him at linebacker. He was okay, but he was always out of position. There were so many good players that were available when they drafted him. It made no sense whatsoever. It was bad.
To that same point, I had Adam Shaheen on my list too. Like that was just athlete, not a football player.
All right, I have 2 more. One I feel like has to be said, even though, and I was almost taking this one, but it didn't lead to a loss, and they still won the Super Bowl. But look, Mike Ditka has come out and said it's one of the biggest mistakes he's ever made in his life was not giving the handoff to Walter Payton, but in giving it to Fridge instead, and then they didn't score. You know, he never got that Super Bowl touchdown. But the other one, and this one kind of is a little bit of a downer as well, Jeff Dickerson. When he passed away, McCaskey tried to give like a little bit of an honorable thought to it. And then in that same sentence, or secondary sentence, goes on to talk about how Matt Nagy's son, because he talks about Parker, Jeff Dickerson's son. He goes on to talk about Matt Nagy's son, who was getting booed at his game, and trying to like compare the two. And it was just a really, really bad look. Like, never should have been done the way that he did it. And then I have more busts to just throw out there if no one else has anything.
You want to do rapid fire, but I think that we've.
No, there's a big one, and it's Cedric Benson, 4th pick in the NFL draft. Absolutely awful. Ended up taking a handoff in the Super Bowl, fumbled it. That could have cost them that game against the Colts. Look, rest in peace, Cedric Benson, but you were an absolute draft bust.
Dude, it was on my list. I was thinking about taking it. I worked at NIU a long time ago, and so statute of limitations run out. So in 2007, I'm there, and I'm taking tickets at the parking lot. Big, like lots and lots of money coming in. Every time I would see Bears fan or someone was wearing a Bears jersey, I would go, hey, Thomas Jones, Cedric Benson, which one? As soon as they said Thomas Jones, they said, hey, parking's on me today. Have a great day. This one guy was like, are you serious right now? I'm like, yeah, I'm dead serious. Go, have a great day. He's like, I don't have to be like, no, you don't have to pay. And then this guy was like, Cedric Benson all the way, baby. I'm like, yeah, that's $5. Like, yeah, pay up, buddy. Let's go.
So Ryan, small world. I was there in 05, 06, 07. I never parked because we lived off campus and my wife went to NIU. And so I never actually had to pay for parking anyway. But I got student tickets at $10 or whatever for student friends tickets were $10. But yeah, that's crazy that we were there at like the exact same time.
We had to have run into each other, dude.
Oh,
we
I'm
had
sure.
to.
I was there for, Garrett Wolf games and
Yes.
yeah.
And he got drafted by the Bears.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 25.
And I was like, oh, this is because he played, against Michigan or whatever, and he had great games. I thought this is going to be that trick back that the Bears have been looking for. He's going to be, the next Darren Sproles. And I think that's probably why they drafted him, but it just never worked out.
We could have done 4 rounds on each category, I think.
Yeah, right. There's lots of Bears blunders apparently, but I mean, this was fun. I don't know about you. I had a blast. Like, I keep hurting from smiling so much this whole time. But I mean, hopefully, we all can agree that hopefully this nonsense is in our past, right? We got a quarterback now. We got a head coach now. We got hopefully a president who's pushing our owner away a little bit, right? So hopefully everything is kind of turning in the right direction. But yeah, this was great.
You said the whole thing could have been on last offseason, and then now it feels completely different. Like maybe they're doing it the right way.
Also, hopefully we can agree that I won again. So go to the comments, type in Rob, winner. Okay, back-to-back champion here at Snake Drafts. Ryan, thank you for joining us. This has been a blast. We'll probably try to get you on again at some point.
Dude,
for sure.
Rob, Justin, Bob, I had an absolute blast hanging out with you guys. Clearly would love to sit and chat Bears with you anytime that you want to have me back. It would just be an absolute blast. Let's hope, boys, that we're going to be watching more winning than losing in the next couple of seasons here.
That's right. That'd be nice. So, All right, well, bear down.
Claws up.
Ready, break.